the general African economy. Energy for peace and prosperity, securing our shared future is, of course, the central theme for n.i.e.s 2026. Warm welcome to all of you. For us here this morning. Therefore, to kindly keep to the time that will be allotted to them. The facility managers have not planned any drill today, and have said, should there be any continuous ringing of an alarm, it indicates an emergency. We proceed to the muster point using the exit door. And of course, muster point, if in doubt, ask any of the event staff or the facility managers. As you exit through the main entrance, you would find the lavatory facing you for both men and women. For the VIP, can we please take our seats? Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Thank you very much. And whilst we're here, please take care of your personal belongings. Inside identical conference. Hello, sir, to my right. That's one of them standing there. Are we ready, guys? The national anthem, just the first stanza only. Let's go.
Nigeria, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians old and proud to serve our sovereign mother.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we welcome once again to this pre-conference opening the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources. His brother minister overseeing the Ministry of Gas is representing us on other sources. Mrs. Patience Oyekunle, very good morning to you, ma'am, and thank you for joining us. We're joined by other heads of agencies here. Congratulations again. We're also joined by the ES of NCDMB, Engineer Felix. Good morning to you, Mr. Halilu. Very good morning, sir. Mr. Malik Halilu would be sitting in for the ES for the fireside chat that would follow now. Now, I am about 15 minutes short, and for that, I would right, ladies and gentlemen, please. Shift. Okay, for those who are in the room who didn't bother to go grab a cup of coffee, you can please take your seat. We'll go and relay the truth from the other areas and then get the session started. Thank you very much. All right, please take your seats. Thank you, technical. Please take your seats, ladies and gentlemen. Please take your seats. I want to say a big thank you to Seplat Energy PLC for sponsoring this break that we've had. Kindly take your seats. Kindly take your seats. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Mr. Gas. Mr. Gas. Yes, Please take your seat. Please take your seat. Please take your seats. We're about to commence the next session. All right. We're still in the pre-conference day. We've talked about local content in the first half of today. In this second half, we will be doing a bit of justice around the gas conversation. Still exploring the topic of regional collaboration and cooperation. So, we will take 2 quick remarks and then we'll take an opening remark, take policy remark from the Honorable Minister that will usher us into a panel session on pipelines, power and peace, unifying Africa's energy diplomacy. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, as we need to start, the others will join us. Let's begin this session by taking a remark from the Regional Coordinator for Africa. Regional Coordinator for Africa of the International Gas Union, who also doubles as the president of Nigerian Gas Association and the legal counsel for Nigerian LNG. Please welcome Mr. Akachukwu Nwokedi.
checking the time. Good afternoon, everyone. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to adopt the already well-established protocol. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this second session of the Nigerian International Energy Summit 2026, focused on regional oil and gas cooperation. I'm honored to address you this afternoon in my dual capacity as the president of the Nigerian Gas Association and also the regional coordinator for Africa of the International Gas Union. These are two platforms united by a shared commitment to collaboration, market development, and the strategic advancement of gas as a catalyst for economic growth and energy security. This session comes at a defining moment for Africa's energy future. Across the world, we are witnessing a profound reshaping of geopolitics, rising strategic competition, fragmented supply chains, shifting alliances, sanction regimes, trade disruptions, and the increasing utilization of energy and critical resources as levers in these dynamics. These trends are redefining how energy is produced, traded, financed, and secured, while recalibrating the true meaning of the term energy security. For Africa, this evolving landscape presents both huge opportunities and risks. I think the opportunity lies in Africa's vast oil and gas endowment and its growing relevance in the global energy markets. The risk, however, is that without coordination, Africa could once again find itself exposed, fragmented, and marginalized, holding vast energy resources while millions of Africans still lack access to reliable, affordable energy and opportunities for economic empowerment. So in this context, the regional strength is no longer a choice. It's a strategic necessity. No single African country, regardless of resources endowment, can independently withstand the full force of global markets, market volatility, geopolitical pressure, or capital reallocation. But together, through coordinated policy, shared infrastructure, integrated markets, and collective diplomacy, Africa can build the scale, resilience, and credibility required to engage the world on its own terms. Regional energy cooperation, therefore, is not just an optional economic or technical agenda. It is a strategic response to a fast-changing world. It means harmonizing policies and regulatory frameworks to enable cross-border investments. It means developing interconnected infrastructure, pipelines, processing hubs, LNG corridors, and shared markets and trading platforms. It means leveraging regional institutions to de-risk projects, mobilize capital, speak with a stronger, unified voice in global energy discussions, and build trust among nations and investors. Natural gas in Africa offers Africa a powerful tool, not only to support industrialization, electricity access, and job creation, but also to serve as a stabilizing anchor in an increasingly uncertain global energy system. But to use this tool effectively, we must think and act regionally. From the West African Gas Pipeline to emerging transnational gas initiative across North, East, Central, and Southern Africa, we're seeing early signs of what regional collaboration can achieve. Yet, these efforts must be scaled, accelerated, and supported by deliberate political will and private sector partnerships. As the International Gas Union Regional Coordinator for Africa, I can confirm and affirm that the global stakeholders are paying close attention, not merely to Africa's resources, but to our capacity for coordination, governance, and strategic alignment. Today, not tomorrow, we must intentionally make choices to ensure Africa emerges as a cohesive energy bloc that can be a growth engine for gas demand, innovation, and sustainable energy solutions, instead of a collection of disconnected and disempowered markets. Nigeria, through the Nigerian Gas Association and in collaboration with the Decade of Gas project, governmental, non-governmental, and regional partners, remains firmly committed to advancing this cooperative agenda, supporting gas markets, investment facilitation, capacity building, and policy coherence across the continent. The recently launched NNPC Gas Master Plan is commendable and shows a shift to value expansion, market-led development, and accelerated delivery. This session, therefore, is not simply about dialogue and engagement. It's about positioning and alignment. Positioning Africa to navigate geopolitical uncertainty with confidence, to convert resources into shared prosperity, to meet expected demand growth in the gas sector, and to build partnerships that are balanced, strategic, and mutually beneficial. Alignment between policy and investment is the next arm. National priorities and regional ambitions, urgent development needs, and global energy realities. I'm confident that when the plenary discussions are held, they will offer practical insights on how regional oil and gas cooperation can be structured, financed, and governed to deliver real and lasting value as quickly as possible. So let us use this session to move from aspiration to action and from fragmentation to strength. Thank you for your attention, and do enjoy the session. Thank you once again.
You know, Mr. Moke, you are the kind of lawyer that when the jury says, argue your case in 5 minutes, you'll win that case. Because you argued it in 5 minutes, and I want to thank you immensely for that. Please give him another round of applause. Thank you. All right, without delay, we'll switch over to the policy remarks from the Right Honorable Obogeme Ekperipe Epo, the Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources for Gas, as you already know, represented by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Please welcome Mrs. Patience Adekunle.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I would like to stand on the already established protocols. It is my honor to welcome you to this pivotal session as Regional Oil and Gas Corporation under this compelling theme, Pipelines, Power and Peace, Unifying Africa's Energy Diplomacy. I commend Private Addison for convening this timely and forward-looking dialogue within the broader team, Energy for Peace and Prosperity, Securing Our Shared Future, at a moment when Africa must, when Africa must strengthen cooperation to navigate global energy volatility and advance shared growth objectives. Africa stands at a defining moment in its energy journey. Ours is a continent richly endowed with hydrocarbon resources, yet constrained by infrastructure deficit, policy fragmentation, and geographical pressures that limit our collective progress. In today's global landscape, marked by supply disruption, energy nationalism, and shifting alliance, it has become clear that no African nation can achieve durable energy security or sustainability or sustainable prosperity in isolation. This session, therefore, invites us to reimagine energy not merely as a traded commodity, but as a strategic instrument of diplomacy, a catalyst for regional integration, and a foundation for peace and stability. Across our continent, strategic cross-border oil and gas infrastructure already points the way forward. From the Nigeria to Morocco and the gas pipeline to emerging energy corridors in the East and South Africa, these initiatives demonstrate how shared infrastructure can strengthen energy security, reduce import dependence, unlock industrialization, and bind our economies together through mutual interest and shared prosperity. Pipelines, in this sense, are more than steels and valves. They are corridors of cooperation, connecting markets, harmonizing policies, enabling power generation, and creating interdependence that promotes stability and peace. Power, when reliable, delivers, fuels industries, lights homes, creates jobs, and restores dignity. Peace, sustained through economic inclusion and shared growth, becomes both the means and the outcome of smart energy collaboration. Against this backdrop, Nigeria believes the time is ripe to think boldly and act collectively. This session has the potential to seed a transformative vision, One African Gas Corridor Initiative, a Nigerian-led continental framework to connect Africa's gas infrastructure, align regulatory and fiscal policies, mobilize joint investment, and build a shared knowledge and technology ecosystem. Such an initiative would position natural gas as a strategic bridge fuel, driving industrial growth, supporting power and generation, enabling regional trade, and advancing Africa's clean energy transition in a manner that is pragmatic, inclusive, and just. It will also strengthen Africa's voice and relevance in the global energy system, not as fragmented producers, but as a coordinated and credible energy bloc. For Nigeria, endowed with gas resources, guided by clear commitment to gas-led growth, regional cooperation is not merely an aspiration, it is a responsibility. We stand ready to work with our neighbors, regional institutions, development partners, financiers, and the private sector to translate shared vision to bankable projects, policy coherence, and measurable outcomes. As we deliberate today, I encourage frank dialogue, practical solutions, and a shared commitment to action. Let us focus on what unites us: the pursuit of energy security, economic transformation, regional integration, and lasting peace for our continent. Together, through pipelines that connect, power that empowers, diplomacy that unifies, Africa can secure a shared energy future, one defined not by fragmentation, but by cooperation, not by scarcity, but by opportunity, and not by conflict, but by peace and prosperity. I thank you all, and I wish you a productive and impactful session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Patience Adekunle. This session is taking shape as is exciting me now. We have first two speakers keeping to within good time. So thank you very much, Madam PS. Please give a round of applause. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay. Now I'm passing the ball to my moderators of this panel and the speakers and moderator of the next panel that will follow after this one. Before I pass the ball to my moderator, let's meet our panelists. First off, I'd like to welcome Deputy Head of Mission, Deputy Ambassador of the German Embassy in Nigeria. Welcome, His Excellency, Mr. Johannes Lenne. You're welcome, Your Excellency. The third one, Your Excellency. The third one, yes. Thank you, Your Excellency. Joining Your Excellency is our Executive Vice President, Gas, Power and New Energy for the National Oil Company, NNPC. Please welcome Mr. Olalekun Ogunleye. You're welcome. To his immediate right, sir. Joining them, I'd like to welcome the STA to the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources for Gas, Special Advisor that is. Please welcome Engineer Ebel Nsa. Joining them is the Managing Director for West Africa Gas Pipeline Company. Please welcome Mr. Abiodun Bodorin. Also on our panel is the Acting Managing Director of Nigerian LNG, Mr. Olakunle Oshobo, represented. So if you give me a quick second, I need to put that up in A minus no time. Yes. Representing him, the Manager Pipeline and Asset Gas Supply for NLNG. Please welcome Mr. Austin Ogbogo. Mr. Ogbogo, you're welcome. He's representing all the way to his right over there. Thank you very much. And now to the captain of this ship for me this afternoon, whom I'm counting on immensely for time management. Please welcome Regional Director, Gas for Africa, Ms. Amel Grapsi. Grapsi, that's it. You're welcome, Amel. Please, to the immediate left of the ambassador. Thank you.
Working. I don't know what it does. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to this session on oil and gas cooperation. So I just introduced myself. My name is Amel Grapsi, and I represent Gas for Africa. And I'd like to discuss with you a very simple matter. We are living on a continent that is very rich in gas. But at the same time, so many regions and parts of Africa are living and struggling to access energy. And somehow these two realities coexist for too long. So I'm very happy to lead this conversation today, where we are going to ask a very simple question, which is, how do we move the gas across border where actually it makes sense for everyone? When we talk about cross-border gas pipelines, we're talking about enabling more power generation, enabling and supporting industrial growth, reducing imports and products like fertilizers or petrochemicals. But most importantly, I would say that when we speak about cross-border cooperation, we speak about linking our economies together. So to explore these issues or challenges and look at them more like opportunities for the future, I'm very pleased to lead this conversation with panel leaders from public and private. Thank you so much. I'd like to start with you, Johannes, and ask you a question more from an international perspective. The question is the following. From Germany or Europe in general, what kind of funding and technical capacity support will you bring to support Africa's energy ambition?
Yeah, thank you very much. That is a simple question, but the answer is very difficult because we have to see here the two sides of the coin. At the beginning of this session, of course, there was a lot of talk about Africa's own energy integration, how to bridge the gap of the African energy needs in order to industrialize the continent, in order to develop it, in order to bring it forward. But now, only over the last 2 years, the international situation has changed dramatically. It's not at the beginning when I came to Nigeria in 2023, we were actually in a situation where Europe were sort of disregarding Africa's energy possibilities and energy resources because we concentrated totally on renewable energies. And actually at a panel in 2024, I actually said here, don't look too much at oil and gas, concentrate also on the right energy mix with renewable energies, because at the end, sort of this is where the world is going. Now this has changed. This has changed in a sense that actually the energy needs of the whole world cannot only be satisfied by renewable energies, but oil and especially gas will be also a bridging technology for a long time to come. This actually poses the question, not only what we can do in order to help Africa to industrialize and to fulfill their energy needs, but also we will also need gas. And that means that all Africa energy integration, which will look for financing and technology in Europe, will be asked to expand their networks into Europe, and not only by LNG, not only by oil, but also by big intercontinental gas pipelines, like, for example, the Nigeria-Morocco Gas Pipeline, who actually has the objective to then connect the northern African part to Spain and therefore to Europe. This is actually in the international field where especially Germany, but I think the whole European Union will participate, will discuss with Africa how can we share responsibilities, how can we share financing, how can we share technology so that you can build intercontinental gas delivery pipelines, but also fulfill your own energy needs, because big markets like Nigeria need their own industrialization, also not only to bring Nigeria forward, but also to be interesting markets for us. And therefore, actually, we are looking forward to a very interesting discussion in the framework of the international finance institutions, in the framework of the new created energy bank, and in other financing frameworks, how we can bring money and technology to Nigeria in order to fulfill this.
So collaboration between Europe and Africa is possible as long as it makes sense for Europe and Africa at the same time. Thank you so much. Understood. I'd like to zoom in into Nigeria, sorry, and I want to have and bring a government perspective to this, and this is a question to you, Engineer Bell. How is Nigeria positioning gas as the anchor?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. This is, just like you know, for Nigeria, as an anchor with respect to gas, that's what your question is you have the decade of gas. We've packaged this together, which is anchored on a few pillars. That's anchored on supply, demand, infrastructure, and funding, and the rest of them to bring gas from source to market. I'm sure during the minister's speech, she must have mentioned volumes of gas in Nigeria gas region, 210 TCF of gas, and the rest of them. How do we go around this? So what has happened? So for that's one, the decade of gas, drive gas-based industry. So we're going to industrialize Nigeria. The basic framework for our gas, for the decade of gas, is basically industrialization, clean cooking, and balance the source and the market supplies. Next, you can look at the PIA. PIA comes in with a lot. It's changed the institutional the governance framework, regulatory and legal framework concerning how to move gas to the market. So that is in place, and we're following that. So all that will happen is what's Africa going to pick from what we've done? The next one is what you might look as waste to investments. The NUPRC, if we want to dive down, is what we call the Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization Program. It makes sense for you, decarbonization. We took about 2 decades to bring the PIA to being. And as you come out, the whole world tells you we need energy transition. That, as much as we're going to produce sensibly, but we're not ignoring that. So we bring gas from the flare, we take that and we beat that out. And so that can come in to provide gas resources in CNG, mini LNGs, industrialize Nigeria with what indeed had hitherto been waste gas. It can go on and on. But let's anchor a little bit on the decade of gas. What do you want others to learn out of Nigeria? That's one of them. The second one is host community development. You've seen that, and you anchor that in the law. The next you can see is put a framework around infrastructure. What basically is lacking is I have a source and I have a market, but I need interconnectivity to bring that to the market. We do not have much of that. But so what is, you've seen section 52 of the PIA talks about infrastructure. And so that infrastructure comes into fund infrastructure. That's a good thing that other African countries can pick out of Nigeria. Next is host community. In order to cut down on disruptions, have a conversation. And you've seen that entrenched in the PIA, Host Community Development Trust. That has gone a long way, and it will make sense for them to pick that as one of the points to learn out of Nigeria. Another one is we are looking at integration. One of the main things that puts Nigeria out there, since you're talking, for them to learn from what we've done, the integration, the West African Gas Pipeline is a very good one. Recently, our president signed a treaty with Equatorial Guinea, and we're going to domesticate that in the country. And so those various parliaments, so we have a lot to learn. How have we operated the West African Gas Pipeline? And so that's something to learn out of there. Tariffing structure, institutional government, intergovernmental agreements. So those are fundamentals that regional, and we can replicate that across the whole Africa. And so that becomes a good example and what they will have to learn from us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nigeria has indeed a very important role in the region and the government to lead integration and industrial growth. Let's stay in Nigeria. Let's go into the NOC. NNPC is the largest energy company in the region, and I think has a very important role to lead gas projects in the region. So my question would be to you, Mr. Lecan. What investment setups or models do we need to put in place to attract more capital into these gas projects in the region?
Thank you very much. There are two dimensions to your question. There's the technical dimension and the project optimization dimension as well. So starting with the technical, of course, there are several project structuring models, but given that the financing community, they do not like surprise, and they like risk minimization, the four most common models are the incorporated JV model, where partners come together, create an SPV, use that as a vehicle to minimize risk, and use that to attract investment, and they can localize risk, etc. And I think WAPCO is a good example of that. NLNG is another one. But you have several others. You have build and transfer. In NNPC, we have a number of projects. The Elf-Lekki is an example of a pipeline project that was developed on that model. You have a financier who practices cost recovery and then transfers it to an operating company who runs the asset. You have build, operate, and transfer. You have the PPP, the public-private partnership, etc. So there are different models. But on the project optimization side, the key elements are, number one, just focusing on cost competitiveness, managing your CapEx, making sure that the project is extremely effectively developed, and you give yourself the best chance for a very low tariff. And we've seen mistakes in the past where we developed projects and the CapEx blew up, and we've struggled with tariff and with commerciality. And I think NLNG is a good, Train 7 is a good example of a project where CapEx has been managed, cost competitiveness has been managed effectively. So that's number one from the optimization side. The second is to take an integrated view. Again, lenders take comfort where they know that the gas producer is a participant in the project. They know that key off-takers are participants in the project.
So it's about flexibility and inclusiveness, and that enableness, is attractive to financiers. And again, we have examples where at the outset, NLNG was a fully integrated project, and lenders take comfort from that. A third one, which speaks to our current reality, is, and sometimes we fail to highlight the cost competitive, the clean energy dimensions of these projects. NLNG, as an example, reduced gas flaring in Nigeria by over 60%. If you look at the African Atlantic Gas Pipeline project, which used to be called the Nigeria-Morocco project, it's going to traverse 13 African countries directly and another 3 indirectly. So that's 16 African economies. It will be displacing diesel and other poorer energy sources with gas, which is cleaner and more. So NMPC's position is that these, from a clean energy perspective, are the low-hanging fruits, and it's important to position them as clean energy projects because they are clean energy projects. The fourth and last element is, there's a saying that we are the ones we've been waiting for. Financing itself, NMPC for the last decade at least has been focusing on galvanizing financing in Africa. And that's why NMPC is a shareholder in AFRIPERF, and that's why NMPC is the major force behind the African Energy Bank. Our view is that development has to be driven by financing institutions that understand our context, our market, and our reality. And so NMPC will continue to champion that. So to connect all the dots, it's a mix of using a model that financiers are used to, are comfortable with from a technical standpoint, and positioning your project appropriately, avoiding errors such as having the same feed contractor do your EPC. It's like giving the burglar the contract to fix your door or window. It doesn't work. So it's a mix of both. And my last word is we've proven, and I think everybody is now seeing, that gas as a commodity has come to its fruition, and that is absolutely financeable, and that gas infrastructure projects are absolutely financeable if structured properly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for highlighting these dimensions and mentioning the role of NLNG and WAPCO. My next question will be to NLNG, actually, Austin. I would say that even if we put together all of the parameters for gas to circulate between economies, we first need one big pillar, is gas availability. So to you, Austin, how does NLNG see the balance evolving between one, domestic demand, and two, LNG exports?
Thanks, Amira, and good afternoon, audience. I think interesting question, trying to balance the domestic and also the exports. Yeah, I think from our own experience, Nigerian LNG, I think we are uniquely positioned to see both the export and also the domestic market. I think it's one discussion that people have taken over and over again, but let me quickly go to the end. Let me flip it that way, then I'll come to the beginning. First is that they are not competing. They are complementary. Whilst export brings in capital, it brings in credibility, the domestic triggers and unlocks development. So those are the two clear points. For Nigerian LNG, over the years, we've supplied over 20 countries in terms of liquefied natural gas. In addition, we have put not just Nigeria, but Africa into the international gas market as one of those companies that can supply gas reliably, up to 75% reliability. It has also been able to attract that capital. Over $20 billion have been attracted cumulatively to the gas infrastructure. What does that mean? In the deeper sense, it has also locally showed that we can pull gas together. Gas can be priced effectively. And also, in addition to that, if you, if you flip back, you can see that when you match what NLNG have done in pulling this gas together, it runs a pipeline structure that supplies it gas just a short of 1,000 kilometers. Yeah? And to do that, you see the integration across communities. Of that 1,000 kilometers, it operates and manages just over 200 kilometers that traverses over 100 communities. For you to do that, it shows that locally, you can also do the same to gas fire, to local markets to trigger developments. With these communities, brings also additional investments, brings collaboration. Again, balancing the domestic with the international. For domestic, for one gas put in the domestic market, you see what the impact is in terms of development, bringing in fertilizer plants, additional bringing in industrial, unlocking the industrial space. So all of this is, for us in NLNG, our experience is that they are complementary and there is no basis for them to see A or B. I'll stop at that and back to you, Mira.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now if we zoom out a bit and we look at West Africa, Abiodun, you had one of the continent's few regional gas ventures, and I would say that you are one of the few people who would be able to tell us what works and what doesn't work. So the question is the following: what are the lessons we need to learn from the West African gas pipeline to expand new energy corridors in the future?
No.
No, thank you very much. For the benefit of the audience, I oversee West African Gas Pipeline Company, which really operates the West African gas pipeline. It's a pipeline, 676-kilometer pipeline that cuts across Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and Ghana. It's really an example of integration, economic integration across the region. We've been operational since 2011, and we've gone through some challenges, which I do firmly believe we've overcome most of those challenges. And those challenges I will enumerate here, as it will help any further integration either within the African region or anywhere else. The first is that the nation has to be highly involved when you are going across borders. And again, if you think about ECOWAS, the primary objective is economic integration. And so for WACP to even take off, you needed a treaty among those four countries. That ensures that there will be sustainability as you have change in government across any of those countries. So once you have a treaty that guides what the individual country does, the next is to ensure that you have harmonized fiscal and regulatory framework. And so for WACP, for example, we do have a regulator that cuts across the pipeline, WACPA, which is also set up by ECOWAS. That ensures that you would have uniformity of regulation across the region. You would also have clear and fiscal framework, which enables investment. The fourth pillar that will be critical if you're thinking of a regional integration effort for energy is it has to be both commercially driven but active government participation. So it has to be public and private partnership, which WAPCO is an example of, because you need the support of the nationals to enable it to be sustainable, but you also need it to be commercially viable. Otherwise, it becomes a project that might not be sustainable. So you need those 4 pillars to enable a regional integration project to work, and that was in place for WAPCO. However, there were challenges. As anything that is new and you're cutting across, you have to overcome some of those challenges. One of the challenges we faced initially is reliability and predictability. Reliability of gas supply. As people start to think about energy security, they're worried about, will I have the gas that I need for my country? So you need reliability of gas to ensure that every part of that pipeline is comfortable that this will work. The second challenge we had is if you start a project, and like my senior colleague alluded to, if your capex is high, then there's a tendency that your tariffs might also be high. That can also be discouraging because you need it to be viable for everybody that plays along that pipeline network. The fourth one is to ensure that you have payment security. And of course, finally, for the pipeline itself to be predictable and reliable. So we've gone through some of those challenges, and I'm glad to tell you here that most of those challenges has been overcome. Last year was the best year ever in pushing gas volumes across the pipeline. It's still not where we want to be. We still were able to deliver the peak gas volumes last year, which was 22% above the previous years. Some of the challenges that have been overcome is, I can assure you that the pipeline is now reliable. We had 99% asset availability. Gas supply is also now very reliable. And last year was an example of there was adequate gas supply coming both from Nigeria and also from Ghana. The third one is infrastructure to take that gas from Nigeria all the way across the region was also a challenge at some point in time. And thanks to NNPC, they've done an excellent work. The pipeline has performed the best we've seen since the inception of the WACP. So all of these challenges have been overcome. What it then provides now is we're predictable. There's adequate gas supply in Nigeria and even to an extent in Ghana. So WACP started as a unidirectional pipeline, but now it's a bidirectional pipeline. We can take gas from any of those 4 countries, from where gas is produced to where gas demand is. And the beauty of it is, now that we are predictable, even the off-takers are now beginning to see this is a reliable source of energy. And we believe that it can only grow from where we are. And so it needs collaboration amongst all the stakeholders, government most importantly. And one benefit we have on the WACP is we've gotten immense support from the government of the 4 countries, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and Ghana. And with that, you can always expect that you would continue to grow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First round. I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for your comments. I think we have spoken technicity of it, and I'd like really to go into specific projects and partnership. Back to you, Johannes. From an international point of view, of course, where do you see most opportunities to mobilize the German or, in general, let's say, European expertise and investments into these gas projects in the region?
Into concrete projects, and it would be strange if Germany would not have prepared something for this. I think actually we could finance and support any of this in the gas value chains, from production to transport to distribution and usage in homes or factories or industry in general. There are several finance windows actually which Europe and Germany have already prepared. The biggest one is the Global Gateway Finance Facility, where there are about between $3 to $4 billion ready in order to be invested in industrialization projects, in distribution projects, and in infrastructure projects. The Germany itself has prepared for 2026 now a new funding facility called Trade Connect, where we actually want to connect the providers for technology here in Nigeria with their partners in Germany in order to bring the newest and environmental friendly technology into this sector into Nigeria. There are also possibilities for joint ventures, for credit insurance, and for other possibilities to do common projects and do common investments. So I think for the gas boom in Nigeria, we are prepared, and we're looking forward to the contacts.
Thank you, Johannes. Let's zoom in again into Nigeria, and the question is for you, Abel. We will mention Decade of Gas, and I saw some of my friends from Decade of Gas in this room. We know that Decade of Gas is oftenly cited as a reference in Africa for this kind of initiative that we are following. How can we use Decade of Gas from Nigeria to drive a stronger strategy for other African gas markets, including pricing and access frameworks?
Thank you very much. One of the things that I'd like us to start with is, for instance, pricing issues. It's got to that tariffing structure concerning the line, because we're still going to start with, remember, the Decade of Gas is anchored on infrastructure, for instance. So how can we scale that across Africa? Within those pillars, we can take that not just to grow gas in Nigeria, but project it across Africa. A good example, you're looking at the pipeline. First of all, whatever, it's got to be treaty-based. That means it's acceptable to the people. Then you bring it in and you domesticate it into the various parliaments. So that's acceptable. That's, for in this case, 4 countries, for instance. That is taken in, the parliament accepts it, so that's ratified by the parliament of the countries. That's a very good example. All you need to do is take a look at what we've done with WAPCO and scale that up. The financial model can also come in. Pricing has become a major challenge. I'm not saying that, so next is operate as a hub, which Nigeria really is one. But you're not going to look at the Louisiana Henry Hub overnight. We can do this by scaling it up gradually. Next is network code, accessibility to those who are going to transport gas via these networks. Because just take that template and replicate it around. We have entry-exit agreements. Is that acceptable to all the parties? Is transparency given to who is entering the network and who is exiting? So you need all the exit agreements, all the entry agreements. Is it acceptable? So transparency is one of such things. Now, supplying what? Measurement, but is it also verifiable? At the back of your hand, remember the issue of I need to see what I am receiving. So integrity along the network. So what you have to do is, all that is what the Decade of Gas has deployed. First of all, what do I need to tweak? Simple things, just like the president's, the presidential directive 40, 41, 42. What the fiscals. So I'm trusting it, and there are not going to be any changes around what is happening. So it's got the fiscals. I'm going to do with, in this case, tax exemptions with respect to what you've done. But you've got to drive something that is acceptable across the major countries. If you switch across to Equatorial Guinea, that's being ratified now. We're going through the process of ratification. That will be lifted. So with respect to the template for financing, you're going to have to do that, and pricing, replicate that across, and let it be acceptable. It's got to be acceptable. You put that in. What's going to drive your gas? Take or pay obligations inside it. is going to come into it, and you have to drive that through. First of all, is the trust in the system. Is it verifiable? That's all. Is it measurable? And can I take that across and go to the bank for bankability? Those are the things. So the decade of gas will do that by moving those pillars across Africa and replicating them. That's how we're going to affect that system. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We understand that Decade of Gas is one of the most successful examples we have on the continent, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. As we have regional ambitions that are going to evolve and develop, we have our national champions who are going to lead the way. And this question goes back to you, Mr. Lecan. What will be the role of NNPC in the region, not just in Nigeria? And what will be the major projects that you are going to actually lead and develop?
Yeah. So there's this saying that I particularly like. It says that fishes are often the last to discover water. So for me, everything starts with context. We are actually in the energy capital of Africa. Abuja is the energy capital of Africa. Nigeria is the energy hub of Africa. NNPC is the biggest energy corporate in Africa. And if you look at the historical, I've talked about NLNG, I've talked about WAPCO. WAPCO has transformed 4 African economies, but it's also OPEC, is African Petroleum Producers Organization. At every platform, NNPC since 1977 has been driving the progression of the energy sector. But there's a song that I'm fond of, What Have You Done For Me Lately? So what we've done is last Friday, we launched the Gas Master Plan 2026. It's about, coordinated development of gas sector. It's new projects such as African Atlantic Gas Pipeline, making sure that over 70% of the gas required for that project will be available. And we're going to do this through collaboration. It's LPG, making sure that we grow LPG availability from 1.5 million tons to 5 million tons. It's the GBIs, etc. But there's another exceptional contribution that NNPC is making, and this is through knowledge sharing. And so we are engaging countries such as Senegal, Mauritania, Ivory Coast, sharing lessons. Like they say, the man who hasn't made mistake hasn't done anything. So we're sharing our successes, sharing our mistakes with them, making sure that we're supporting the development of a gas master plan for their countries. And we're just, leveraging on collaboration and cooperation to create new opportunities. In Nigeria, NNPC, through its subsidiary company, NGPIS and NGML, has created a national gas transportation network and gas distribution network. We are discussing with other jurisdictions like Ivory Coast, like Ghana, and replicating this, advancing economic development in these countries. And so, in a nutshell, NNPC today is focusing on execution excellence, is focusing on just getting it done, and also leading the African continent in terms of optimizing value from our energy resources. And the African Atlantic Pipeline Project is a major initiative in this regard. And that is why NNPC, with its partner on him, prioritizing the progression of this project in year 2026.
Thank you so much. I would say that from a continental perspective, we definitely are looking at NNPC as a leader, and so we are looking closely at your development and governance. I'd like to go back now to NLNG, and then we'll finish up with WAPCO. Dear Austin, let's speak about regional utilization. How can an LNG infrastructure be leveraged to support the regional gas utilization?
Very much for that. Flipping back to NLNG, what we have done, and how will that help the integration of gas utilization across the continent? Let's step back for a bit. If you were here in the first session, I think I had Debo of N.i.e.s talk about finances. The moderator as well followed up to NCDMB in terms of financing, where I see NCDMB said they have about 50 million. My senior colleague, the EVP, have mentioned strong interest or investment in the Energy Bank and in the AFRIPERF. And what that tells us is that funding is critical. And I want to just relay a practical experience. Dial back 2019, sitting in a room with over 25 top European bankers, everybody seated, and here's Nigerian LNG wanting to raise funding for its expansion project 27. When we raised what NLNG had done, they looked at the dossier. It was clear that everybody there was saying, is this company in Africa? I guess if my ER tracked it, you'll have seen people going to check what this company is. What am I saying in essence? When they saw the scalability of what we have done in terms of the integration of all the pipelines, when they've seen that we've operated for over 25 years at the time, and with a reliability of 95% and above, it just tells us that what we have done in Nigerian LNG, with the size of funding aggregated, like I said earlier, on over $20 billion, we can use that to integrate as a sample, as a blueprint for the African gas for the African integration in terms of pipelines. For us, in NLNG, that operational excellence is transferable, it's something we've done, it's something we've experienced. The scale, if you look at it from the downside, that if you look at it from gas aggregation, you have the ability to hold gas supply agreements, that's tying the gas that will come in, operating that plant at a level that you are meeting your commitments, and also the agreement to sell it. So from end to end, we've been able to demonstrate it. And having done that, it's something that we can, with that experience, share with the rest of the region to say, this is achievable. It was an eye-opener for the international market to know that for them to even lend you any funding, you should be operating at a particular level, which we have demonstrated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think time is up. I would like to finish with you, Abiodun, in 1 minute. If you can just tell me what's next for the West Africa Gas Pipeline. In 1 minute, please.
Okay, I'll try. So the near-term target for us is fully utilize the capacities that we have. So this year we're hoping to increase gas volume from Nigeria by 80%. That's our target for the year. My chairman is on the panel, so I'm repeating the words. So our target is to, end of year, increase volume from Nigeria to the region by 80%. It's a massive target. That ensures that we utilize the existing capacity at each of our existing stations. Our midterm target is to ensure that we fully utilize the capacity of the offshore pipeline itself. Right now, we'll probably be about 40% of the pipeline capacity. Our 5-year target is to ensure that we fully utilize that offshore pipeline capacity. And then, of course, our long-term target is to expand the existing infrastructure for the WACP. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really, really hope that we'll see year after year some progress. Time is up. I just want to say thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we're done.
Thank you very much, Amel Grapsi. Just remain seated, ladies and gentlemen. Let's quickly say thank you to you with our plaques. Ladies, can I have those? Yes, ma'am. Mr. Yekunle, patience. You will do the honors again of presenting this to them. Please give them one more round of applause. Thank you very much. Now, while Madam is getting ready to present to them, I want to make a special appeal. Please, as they finish, remain seated. Allow them take their seats in the audience because we're going over immediately to the final panel for today. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you, thank you. Next, the Acting Managing Director of NLNG, Mr. Oshobo, has represented. Please, sir. Did I mix it up? My bad, my bad. I mixed it up. That's on me, that's on me. I was supposed to call Mr. Johannes, Your Excellency, Mr. Johannes Lene. Please proceed, sir, and get your plaque. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. I have entered autopilot. When I'm in autopilot sometimes, all I see is the end goal, the end line. All right? Next is EVP Gas and Power and New Energy NMPC, Mr. Olakunle Ogunleye. Thank you for your insights as well. Olakunle Ogunleye is next. Next will be Engineer Ebel Ansah, Senior Technical Advisor to the Honorable Minister. Olalekon. Oh, is that okay? That's the. Oh my goodness. Olalekon. Olalekon, please. I said Olakunle. Forgive me, Maoga. I'm still sticking with Mr. Oshobo of NLNG. My bad. Forgive me, sir. Forgive me. Forgive me, forgive me. Mr. Olalekon Ogunleye, that will be. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next is Engineer Ebel Ansah. Thank you very much. Following Mr. Ebel Ansah will be Mr. Abiodun Bordering. Thank you so much for your time. All right, Mr. Ansah, please approach. Thank you very much. Thank you. Engineer Ansah, FNSA, please approach. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Abiodun Bordering is on standby. Thank you, MD WAPCO as well. Thank you very much. And now I'm coming back to Mr. Olakunle Oshobo. If has it been given to you already? It hasn't? Okay, that was my mix-up. Apologies one more time. Now to Mr. Olakunle Oshobo, represented by Austin Obobo. Thank you so much for your insight. We have a couple more PS. Kunle now. Kunle, please. Give to Kunle now, please. I know you have Olakunle Oshobo. That's the name you have there, so I don't want to. Austin is representing him. I know that's the name you have there. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to now call on Mr. Akachukwu Nwokedi to also receive his plaque of appreciation. RC for Africa, IGU. Yes, NGA President, Legal Counsel for NLNG as well. Thank you. Photographer, if you know take who you go snap. Wow, for you. All right, thank you very much. And then, Engineer Ansah, you will receive on behalf of your principal, who is represented by the PS. Since the PS is presenting, I want you to receive on behalf of the minister this time. Please, for the minister. PS, so PS, please present to Ebel Ansah for the minister now. Let Ebel receive for the minister. That's for you now, but since you are presenting, let him receive on your behalf. Aka, you're supposed to be back here. We're taking a family photo right now. Please join them. All right, please file out a family photo. Family photo. Give them a round of applause one more time, ladies and gentlemen. And please allow them take their seat in the audience. Allow them take their. Don't bother coming to them now for networking. I beg you, please. You have time to do that at lunch or during the tour of the exhibition much later. But for now, please remain seated and allow them sit down. We're rolling over, as I said, to the next panel immediately. Following that panel, following lunch, exhibition opening, following that at 6 p.m., the dinner, sponsored by IPPG, strictly by invitation, and of course the Africa Rave concert, that one for all delegates and all VIPs. It's both events in the evening at Abuja Continental. Now remember to engage with us on social media using the hashtags that I listed to you earlier, hashtag n.i.e.s 2026, and the 4 others that I had given you then. Please engage with us. Keep the engagement going. Make it in one trending on X and across social media platforms. We'll appreciate that. onwards now to the final panel for today. As I please now ask the panelists, can you take your seats? Can you please take your seats? Please give them one more round of applause as they take their seats. Thank you very much. Please take your seats in the audience. Please take your seats in the audience. Take your seats in the audience. Thank you, Permanent Secretary Ma. Please take your seats in the audience. Your Excellency, thank you as always. Lovely to always have you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Amel, you did a fantastic job. Lovely. Thank you for keeping to time for us. We appreciate you. Please take your seat. Thank you very much. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Onwards now to the final panel. We're going to take remarks before we get to the panel itself. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Thank you very much. Please take your seats. Wonderful, wonderful. Please take your seats. Thank you very much. All right. Wonderful audience. You are most wonderful audience. Most wonderful audience. All right. Onwards now to the next panel. We're looking at One Africa, One Regulatory Voice, aligning policies for continental prosperity and investment. We're looking at regulatory diplomacy and policy architecture. We're moving on now to our opening remarks for this session. And I'd like to invite the double chairman, a multiple chairman if you like, Chairman Energy Institute, Chairman Aradel Holdings PLC. Please welcome Mr. Austin Olorunsola for his opening comments. This way, sir.
Thank you. Actually, I'm a triple chairman, not double. Should complete it. Okay. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Mine is just to lay foundation, some building blocks. It's going to be pretty short, but very much straight to the point. Again, the theme is regulatory diplomacy and policy architecture, forging a unified voice across Africa. Let me start by saying that despite differences in geography, in politics, resource endowment, many African countries somehow still share very common structural characteristics and credentials, very much beyond our color or even frames. These include electricity deficits, which we see very often, limited transmission, grid instabilities and outages, heavy dependence on petroleum, but more specifically for revenues, large untapped mineral and renewable resources, infrastructure constraints, energy access gaps, energy transition dilemma, financing difficulties, as well as diverse social challenges, including urbanization pressures. All these similarities tend to shape policies, regulations, investment focus, as well as strategy, which unfortunately only terminate at the territorial borders, with very minimal cross-border sharing, alignments, or even collaboration. I was quite happy with some of the things I just heard just now. Not just sharing successes, but also sharing failures, because therein really lies the proper learning. But remember this African proverb that if you want to go fast, you can make it alone. But if you really want to go far, you pull resources and go together. I'm not seeing whether we are going very fast or actually very far, but I think we can. I'll say that an African moonshot, like the framework for the African Continental Free Trade Area, is a very great driver for collaboration and alignment across the continent, but even more specifically for energy sufficiency and how to really sustain it over time. As we all know, without unhindered access to electricity and energy generally, the economic growth and resilience will continue to elude all of us. I still believe that power is the most important thing we just have to crack. However, this big bang type of Pan-Africanism or Pan-African agenda and roadmap, like the AFTA, for example, sometimes may be too heavy and even probably a bit too weighty to even start at all. We want to do everything across Africa all at the same time. Therefore, latching on what I call the established frameworks, and even more importantly, using the successful platforms in the 5 regions. You know, we have 5 major regions in Africa. There's the North African Sahel area, there's the East African area, the South African, Greater South African area, and then you have the whole of West Africa. In the middle, you have that Central Africa. So I'm saying that if we're able to pull things, just start a little bit from the regions. This, for me, will facilitate joined-up thinking and implementation within those regions before a second phase Pan-African scale. That is the way I believe we can develop and even sustain the unified voice that we all look up to as per the theme, and hopefully becoming a template and probably even a DNA for other collaborations beyond borders and geographies. However, we must take a little time also to study and understand why previous cross-border initiatives have failed, or at least not deliver as intended. Political will, shared purpose, and mutual benefits for all, trust, transparency, structured cooperation and infrastructure gap closure mechanisms must be the central focus to attain this goal of unified. Clarity begins even at home. As enabling as the PIA has been since enactment in 2021, it's yet to be delivered. But we're on the way, but it's yet to be delivered. So don't get me wrong, all industry stakeholders are sweating it out and making progress. But I believe, also being one of the architects of this legislation, it can be a lot better if we can get both the NUPRC and the NMDA-PRA to collaborate even a lot more to enable the industry as a whole. And we're discussing during coffee break of somebody who went to, was it NUPRC now? Oh, went to one anyway to get certain things done. And that is really not the body that should be looking at that. But rather than say, let me channel you properly and take you to the other body, say, well, it's not here. You know, that kind of, it shouldn't be. And that's really not what, that's not the intent when we're even splitting the regulatory bodies. So we must subdue silo mentalities, guys, and rather encourage working together for common goals to deliver greater benefits and successes. Getting collaboration right locally, it's what will really give impetus to even cross-border efforts that we're talking about in terms of sharing, in terms of collaboration across. But why not keeping it simple? And I know it's not very simple. If it was simple, we couldn't have spent 20 years on PIA anyway. I believe we can make it happen. We must be very intentional and disciplined to obey the core characteristics, principles, as well as the fundamentals of that word collaboration. And I give you just a bit of it. One is you must have shared goals and value systems. Otherwise, it's so difficult to even say, come, let's collaborate. You must have an open book to everything, and I talk about transparency. This word trust is so heavy. You must trust yourselves, both within these clusters as well as across. We must be accountable, backed by very clear roles and responsibilities. We must, like I said, leverage our strengths, okay? Iron sharpening iron. And we must have long-term views all the time for whatever we do. Even your short-term must have a line of sight with the long-term views. And remember, pace and scale matters as we embark on this journey. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Austin Olorunshola there. You know, when you dig a foundation to build a house, they say you need to fill the DPC before you start laying the blocks. He has dug the foundation. Let's now fill the DPC by taking a remark from the Commission Chief Executive of the NUPRC, Mrs. Orushemeiwa Eyeson, who was here earlier with us but had to attend to other matters. But Director Economic Regulations and Strategic Planning will speak on her behalf. Welcome, Mr. Edu Iang.
Your Excellencies, please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. It is a pleasure to speak on the theme, One Africa, One Regulator's Voice, Aligned Policies for Continental Prosperity and Investment, which underscores the importance of a regulatory alignment across African countries. Africa's prospects for shared prosperity are underpinned by the scale of natural and human capital. The continent holds about 8% of the global oil and gas reserve, produces 7 million barrels of oil per day, 32 billion standard cubic feet of natural gas per day, and account for nearly 30% of the world's known critical mineral resources, including more than half of the global cobalt reserve and substantial shares of manganese, graphite, platinum group metals. Alongside this resource is a population of over 1.5 billion people, characterized by a youthful democratic profile, offering a rapidly expanding workforce and a dynamic consumers market. When these energies, minerals, and democratic advantages are developed through coordinated policies, integrated infrastructure, and aligned regulatory framework, they can drive industrialization, strengthen regional value chains, enhance energy security, and deliver sustainable and inclusive growth across the continent. In this context, oil and gas resources remain integral to African development, supporting industrial growth, electricity generation, clean cooking initiative, fertilizer and petrochemical industries, and public revenue that fund critical infrastructure and social amenities. Distinguished delegates and colleagues, our energy and mineral wealth can either remain fragmented or leaving each nation to struggle alone, or they can serve as a bedrock of a new era of continental prosperity. The difference between these futures is unity. The focus before us, therefore, is how African countries can strengthen cooperation and policy alignment to develop these resources responsibly and efficiently, while advancing common regional and continental objectives. According to the International Energy Agency and the World Bank tracking report, over 600 million Africans still lack access to electricity, and nearly 1 billion rely on international biomass for cooking. At the same time, Africa's historical emissions are a small fraction of a global total. A unified African voice at successive COPs and global energy fora played a decisive role in securing agreement on a just, orderly, and equitable energy transition, with explicit recognition of national circumstances and the role of transitional fuels, thereby preserving Africa's ability to sequence this transition and responsibly deploy gas to address energy poverty and development needs. This is the power of a coordinated African voice and the decisive value of speaking with one voice. Similarly, working in concert with other developing countries, Africa helped secure a historic loss and damage fund at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, marking a major step in recognizing climate justice for the most vulnerable. These outcomes were the result of deliberate coordination with Africans speaking through a unified voice under the action group of the negotiators, advancing a clear case of a just transition, differentiated pathways, and a practical role of gas in African development. This experience highlights the tangible impacts of a collective advocacy, and it reinforces the importance of sustained policy alignment and coordinated action in advancing continent shared development and prosperity. Clear evidence of the benefits of African cooperation can also be seen across trade, power, gas infrastructure. A notable driving force behind this progress is African Union, whose effort to strengthen peace, security, collective diplomacy continue to support deeper economic integration, most notably through African Continental Free Trade Area, AFTA. As the world's largest free trade zone, the AFTA can potentially, if fully implemented, to lift approximately 30 million people out of extreme poverty and harmonizing policies and dismantling trade barriers. In the power sector, regional interconnections such as 1,303 kilometers CLSG line now enable cross-border electricity among Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, delivering affordable power to roughly 2.8 million people, with similar gains emerging from OMVS, OMVG, and Nordcore projects, which are strengthening the overall West African power pool network. Likewise, the West African Gas Pipeline, Sub-Saharan African First Regional Gas Transmission System, supplies Nigerian gas to Benin, Togo, and Ghana. This demonstrates how harmonized agreement and shared infrastructure can lower costs, improve reliability, and reduce reliance on high-emission fuel. Together, these few examples underscore a simple lesson. when African alliance policy, institutions, and infrastructure development accelerates and it benefits reach more people. While we rightly celebrate these gains, we must also be honest about the opportunity we lost when we did not act in concert. Data from the Global Energy Monitor indicate that more than 180 TCF of gas discovered in Africa has yet to be sanctioned for development. In Nigeria, despite holding about 210 TCF of proven gas reserve, many gas fields remain stranded or undeveloped, with an estimated over 600 TCF in upside potential yet to be fully unlocked. A universal gas markets posture with aligned fiscal term could have accelerated FIDs and secure better pricing for the country. For years, we saw gas in one country, demands in another, and industry in a third, with no connecting pipelines or harmonized tariff. Projects like Nigeria-Morocco and the revived Trans-Saharan gas pipelines are now addressing this. But the lack shows the cost of working in isolation, including short power plants, flaring instead of utilization, and constrained industrial growth. A unified, integrated Africa is also positioned to mobilize meaningful support for global partners. When countries harmonize policies and regulations, Africa can leverage its own financing institutions, such as African Energy Bank and African Bank, to de-risk projects, accelerate industrialization, expand electricity, and unlock jobs and revenue. At the same time, partners like World Bank and other development finance institutions can invest more efficiently on regional priorities. Integrated energy market, cross-border infrastructure, and consistent regulatory regime reduce risk, improve bankability, attract private capital, and enable development partners to confidently support transformative projects that drive shared long-term prosperity. Distinguished participants, Nigeria has indeed taken deliberate steps to spearhead regulatory alignment and gas-driven development in this long-awaited new era of African energy integration. Through Petroleum Industry Acts, we have strengthened governance, transparency, and investors' confidence, laying the foundation that cross-borders projects demand. Under the visionary leadership of His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, we are deliberately creating a physically attractive, cost-competitive, and business-friendly environment to unlock Nigerian fast gas reserve to power homes, industry, and regional growth, positioning gas as African transition fuel. Alongside other complementary measures already in motions, we are currently conducting block licensing rounds with full transparency, giving investors a clear path to Nigerian fast and promising hydrocarbon basins while supporting sustainable long-term growth. Our mission is clear: to expand reserve, optimize production, and responsibly increase output, ensuring that Nigerian energy development drives economic prosperity, safeguards the environment, and set a benchmark for the continent's energy future. Across the continent, pipelines are turning visions into a reality. The AKK pipeline backbone, the flexible West African gas pipeline, the Nigeria-Morocco Atlantic gas pipeline, and the revived Trans-Saharan gas pipeline are knitting African energy markets together like never before, Complementing this, the African Energy Bank, headquarters in Nigeria, is mobilizing African capital for African projects, closing financial gaps left by global withdrawal. These are not just national initiatives, they are continental commitments, unifying policy, connecting infrastructures, and building energy corridors that Africa needs to thrive. Investors are not deterred by African geology. They are deterred by inconsistent rules. Understanding that an harmonized regulatory voice lower risk and facilitate cross-border energy projects, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, together with the sister regulators across the continent, established African Petroleum Regulators Forum, AFRIPERF, last year. AFRIPERF is now advancing regulatory convergence through aligned standard, shared data, capacity building, and unified African voice on a global platform. With this foundation in place, investors gain predictability and consistency they need, while countries benefit from fast project execution and broader shared prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to conclude by reaffirming a simple truth. Africa's unity has already begun to reshape global outcomes, but our greatest victory still lies ahead. From this stage, let us commit to strengthen AFRIPERF, deepening our regional gas and electricity networks, adopting shared sustainability and decarbonization standards, leveraging AFSA to mainstream energy trade and cross-border investment, and maintaining a unified African stand on COPs and all global fora. Our voice must be one, our framework aligned, and our action coordinated. Only then can we unlock the transformative power of African resources for our people. One Africa, one regulator's voice, one energy future. Together, we will deliver Africa's energy promise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Edu Iyang there, speaking on behalf of Mrs. Eyeson Orushemeyiwa, the Commission Chief Executive Officer. Let's now go over to laying the blocks for the final panel session for today, as I begin by welcoming first off on the panel, Chairman Shoreline Natural Resources. Please welcome Agbaoye Kola Karim. You're welcome to your seat on the panel, sir. The third one, sir. The third one. Right there, exactly. Yes, sir. Joining him, I'd like to welcome the President of the Nigerian Association of Petroleum Explorationists, NAPE, Mrs. Olajumoke Ajayi, FNAPE. You're welcome. The head commercial and planning, Ashrami Energy, a Sahara Group upstream company, is here. Let's welcome Dr. Tosin Etomi. You're welcome. Joining them is technical advisor upstream to the Honorable Minister of State for Oil. Welcome, Dr. Aisha Abdullahi Umar. Joining them, founder and managing director of AFTRAC Limited. Let's welcome Ms. Patricia Simon Hart. Also on this panel is Chief Operating Officer in Nigeria Limited. Welcome, Mr. Oladimeji Bashoro. Completing the list of panelists, let's welcome Group Managing Director, Nimbe Exploration and Production Company, Mr. Victor Okoronkwo. Helping us ask the questions is the publisher of Africa Oil and Gas Report. Welcome, our moderator, Mr. Tony Akionsho. And I'm counting on him as well to deliver on the time mandate. On your time mandate we stand. Your seat is here, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon, all. I think our panel is probably the most consequential panel we have, even though the topic is a far more intellectual topic than specific. You know, I saw Mr. Omatsola trying to navigate as an African who's been part of the development of the PIA, trying to see how Africa can, trying to give a sense of how we can use the PIA as an opportunity to get together on the African stage and produce documents that speak to the Pan-African challenge. And you can see my choice of words, from my choice of words, that this is a very difficult topic. One of the things that make me feel good about this incredible panel is that it's a panel of producers. Everyone here is a crude oil producer, apart from the government official who is here. It is also the first panel, you know, here where you can say that there's someone you can describe as an owner of oil wells. You know, when someone has a license, when someone bids for a license and leads a company, the balance in the Delta Creeks is that, oh, you also own an oil well. Kola Karim Agbaye owns oil wells. Most of the rest of us work for companies that own oil wells. Now, I'm going to start with someone that I consider is done virtually everything. Patricia Simon Hart has run one of the most important energy, oil and gas service companies for the past 30 years. And she's also been a commissioner in Rivers State, you know, as a commissioner, you know, so she's basically led a sector reform in Rivers State. And now she sits on the board of one of the most important flagship oil and gas companies in the country, Aradel, you know, Holdings. So she is going to sort of like, you know, help us start this very difficult business of all of us Nigerians, trying to speak the African language. It's not a continental panel. There are no Angolans here. There are no Congolese. There are no Algerians. And we're trying to make sense of what. And you know, Mr. Omatsola said we must undo silo mentality. But we are not, we are, to start with, is still even trying to figure out how our own jurisdiction will work. So another challenge that I do have, let me quickly tell you before Patricia is allowed to start us off, is that the companies that actually do the Trans-African thing, West African Gas Pipeline, Chevron, which supplies, you know, into that pipeline, ND Western, which supplies into that pipeline, they are not on this panel. My panelists don't supply at all into anywhere on the continent. So they have a significant challenge. So with the stammer, I do believe that you understand. And it also means that I'm going to ask probably more specific Nigerian questions than what we're supposed to be doing. So, Ms. Simon Hart, I'd like for you to give us a sense of... Mike. Oh, okay. I'd like for you to give us a sense of you know, what you think in terms of sector reform. I mean, what the PIA has been able to achieve so far in terms of the 5-year journey and how that says anything for Africa at all. I hear almost everywhere that the Angolans have more clarity or framework than we do. You have worked on sector reforms in Rivers State, and the second question would have to be ESG, but let me ask you this, let me take you off on this. So when you look at the journey that Mr. Olorunshola was trying to help us figure out, where do you think we are in that journey? And so how can we be an example for the rest of Africa?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, indeed, the PIA was a landmark moment for the oil and gas industry. We have a very ambitious law in place, but the law alone will not achieve what we're trying to do without proper implementation. And I think I said this about 4 years ago under the last administration, that reforms, sector reforms require, part of the sector reforms that they need to focus on is actually implementation and strengthening the institutions that will actually deliver what that they are expecting to see in the industry. I mean, the whole spirit behind the PIA was to unlock value within the industry or within the petroleum sector. So for us at the moment, I wouldn't say that other African countries should just copy us lock, stock, and barrel. I would say they should look at the areas that have worked. And so I will just mention a few areas that I think are working and others that maybe they shouldn't just try and follow. For the sector, I think one of the main things, or the two main areas that the PIA tried to address, one was the roles, so separation of the roles within the sector. We have now very clearly, we have the ministry which handles policy, and that is very important, which is separate from the regulators, which will implement the policies through rules, guidelines, regulations, enforcement, what we're seeing in the industry. And then we have the National Oil Company, NNPCL, which is commercializing the operation. So this sectoral, this clear division of the roles within the sector was needed and has evolved. We know that, yes, the institutions still need to be strengthened, so NNPCL and the regulators. So we have 3 regulators, really. We have NNDPRA, NUPRC, and we also have NCDMB, all regulating the sector, not to mention other agencies of government which also regulate the sector. But apart from that, we also have the fiscal reforms that were very beneficial to the sector and were set to attract investment. And so indeed, it has been set up to attract investment. But implementation of these laws, we've seen policy, we've seen the executive orders, fantastic executive orders that have come out also to unlock this potential within the sector and to attract investment. So we're seeing even the feedback from that. We're seeing investors wanting to come on, especially with what has been put in place for deep water. We've seen investments coming in. But more than that, I think what investors are really looking for, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa, would be clarity when it comes to regulation. So implementation of the policies is the responsibility of the regulator. And so with the regulator, we want to see clarity in terms of the policies. We want to see a regulator that really and truly is the custodian or is managing the entire oil and gas reserves and trying to optimize what we can gain or the value that can be derived from this. And deriving value not just for the government in terms of generating revenue, but also deriving value for investors who are coming in and for the citizens, as well. So it's not just being set up as revenue-generating agencies, which somehow we're seeing that at the moment. It feels like the drive is to generate revenue. But rather than that, we want to unlock the value within the sector. And this can be achieved through them really looking at ways long-term rather than immediate gains they can get from the sector. So I think for African countries that want to follow, they should align with those good things, the separation of power or roles, as well as the fiscal regimes that have been set up, but then unlocking that value within the sector and not being just that gatekeeper. They have a serious role when it comes to that. They can also, from lessons learned, make sure we don't have overlapping power, overlapping roles, which Mr. Lawrence Shola said at the beginning as well. We have all these duplication of roles and responsibilities where you have to go to two regulators for the same thing. So those need to be clarified where really what investors want is a one-stop shop. But they do want clarity. They do want continuity. And so it's a journey, and we're on the journey.
Thank you.
We're on the journey, but over time, we'll be able to tell whether there is a consistency, and we're seeing consistency coming from the regulators, and whether the regulators really want to unlock this value long term, or they're just looking for the short-term gains.
Clarity, clarity, clarity. I hear that all the time, and sometimes I used to work for an IOC, and every time there will be incentives, and I always wonder, when are they going to run out of asking for incentives? I used to actually think that in those days that government had delivered virtually everything and people still want incentives. But, you know, the job that I do is now I'm a cynic. And I don't want to carry that cynicism. Yeah. I see Agboy shaking with laughter. When we say clarity, you own a company, you founded a company that produces crude oil and gas from what's supposed to be the largest asset in the Western Niger Delta. And in the last 1 year, there's been a surge in production. Was there any trigger for that increase in production? The company virtually wasn't drilling a well for over 10 years. So what happened? Who shot who?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for this invitation. I think what is critical first is the nexus, right? Africa, 54 countries, but oil is no longer the preserve of a country called Nigeria. There's oil found everywhere now. So what we need to do, and that's part of what came into effect that changed the fortunes of our business, is enacting and following through laws that will energize the sector. For us, the executive order. It was crystal clear that for over 20 years, operating an asset at a $2 million base is nowhere. You couldn't even buy pumps at that kind of price. The executive order coming to change that to about 10 million, changed and put an impetus behind it. That's one. Two, the PIA in itself brought in some clarity around who is doing what and what methodology focuses on in making that dynamic change. So we saw that. Three, and what's important is the rule of engagement with your joint venture partner is a lot clearer, because now you have an arbiter, you have the rules and regulations set for it. So with all this coming together, it actually gave clarity to us, and more importantly, the communities, because the PIA actually set the framework on how we as a company engage with the communities and the interaction thereon. And that has worked well to our advantage, working together seamlessly with the communities in a faster way. The problems are still there, but it's a faster resolve of the issues that's come into play. Secondly, and I should say this, for us, Delta State government, we see a lot more faster response from the state government when there are issues, because this also matters to them because of what they're earning from what we produce. So the interface and integration of this whole prospect is what and how we've been able to achieve what we've achieved in the last year.
Okay, so thank you so much for clarifying that. Then, so you say that, you know, things are clearer, incentives are better, But let me, since we're talking about regulatory diplomacy, you've done Tanzania, you've been to Equatorial Guinea. What are the lessons that you see in those areas that, because these questions that I'm giving is asking if they're asking what the other African countries see in us. But let's turn it around. What do you see in those places that you don't see here?
That's a very good question. I'll give you a very recent interaction. Angola. We've just been awarded 3 assets in Angola. And believe you me, if I send a note to see the executive of ANPG, I will get a response in 24 hours giving you date, time, and where. So it tells you seriousness in commitment to getting resolved, because they realize where I started. Oil is no longer the preserve of countries like Nigeria, so there's competition. Capital availability and allocation is not the problem. Capital is looking for returns, but capital is looking for friendly disposition to returns. So Nigeria needs to become more serious, more engaging, more open in showing the world that we're ready for business.
So do you, okay, let me leave you, so because we have quite a number of us here. Jumoke, yeah, you can go ahead and clap. Jumoke she's wearing 2 hats here. She's the president, Nape, my president. She's also, and Nape is Nigerian Association. Let me do a bit of marketing. It's the Nigerian Association of Petroleum Exploration. I can see the vice president here. I see the president-elect here. It's an advocacy group, and it's advocated for the last 50 years. The question I want to ask you immediately does not have anything to do with NAPE. It has more to do with your work formerly in Sahara, as well as what you do now as MD of Ingencia. And that question has to do with, number one, Sahara was in Ghana, and there were things you probably saw. And let me quickly bring, because the organizers actually want us to talk about a Pan-African regulatory ecosystem. And I don't want to stray away from it too much. It's just that this group is too Nigerian for us not to discuss the Nigerian problem, And I don't think that we have solved anything despite what, solved all the problems despite what Nosa was saying about everything solved. So the question is, what were the things that you saw in Ghana that you could borrow? And, I see Toby smiling. He used to be country manager Sahara in Ghana. I will bring it up to you, too. But let's just look at these cross-border things. What are the things? He just mentioned one now. And maybe we're beginning to construct the document. If somebody, maybe part of what will be in the document from what Agbari says is that if somebody picks up a call and calls Mr. Esa, he should respond in 2 minutes. Okay, so what's your take on some of these things? And then I would ask you further questions. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm wondering why you took me back to my days in Sahara. Yeah, you're right. What Mr. Karim said is correct. Similar thing happened in Ghana. You can walk into their office and get your things done, within record time. But there's something I saw there which I feel we can replicate here in Nigeria. Yes, in terms of oil and gas development, we can say that Nigeria is ahead of most African countries. But that doesn't mean that we can't learn from those who are coming behind us. So why I'm saying this, it has to do with the frontier basins. The bid round, discussion going on during the pre-bid round session, I think 2 weeks ago, when we presented 50 assets, 15 of them are frontier area, I asked a question in the Article Hotel. I said, what incentive do you want to give to investors to attract them to come take up these assets? We as NAPE, our ideas find oil and gas, and we continue to find oil and gas. That's why we continue to advocate for exploration, exploration, exploration. So because as we are depleting the existing reserve, we need to replace with new discoveries. So I'm particularly happy that we are bringing out the frontier basins, but how do we attract investors to put their money in when they are also assets with data, what will attract me to go for the frontier? There's something that Ghana did when we went there some years back. Their focus wasn't on signature bonus. It was more of work program. And what they did, they give you the asset, you go ahead, shoot seismic, process it, evaluate. If you are happy with what you see, then you go back to them to have a conversation. If not, you drop the asset. And what that means is that you've not lost any signature bonus. The only thing you've done is to spend to assess the asset. And if it's not okay by you, the government will take over that data, so you've added value. They have that data and you leave. But if it is of interest to you, then you have a conversation. If we can bring that to Nigeria and tell people to come in, just go there, whichever of the frontier basins, go and shoot. If it's 2D seismic, if it's 3D, shoot, assess it, and if you are comfortable with it, come and have conversation. And what that will do, signature bonus is just, when you look at the value that will add, it's nothing to compare with what you get on a daily basis. Government will get on in terms of royalty, taxes, and all that, if a major discovery is made. But you have given them that incentive, attracts them to work the asset. If we can bring that in, it will go a long place. And you see people even coming from outside Nigeria to take up those assets. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll still come back to you regarding, what NAPE is bringing to the table. Now, Toby, you have more or less told the world what you are going to come and discuss at this conference. But let me give them a sense of who you are. You've done the entire value chain virtually in Sahara. You've been in shipping and operations, and then you've been, in the downstream in some other countries. And then when you were, the country manager in Ghana, it was not just for upstream, it was also for other areas. Now, you actually have a very strong sense of what African regulatory ecosystem should be. Can we learn some of the things you have in mind, what you are trying to say in that your posting?
Excuse me. Thank you very much for the question. In my short stint in Ghana, 7 years, there were quite a number of learning points. One of the things that Ghana did was to unbundle their sector, separating the upstream and the downstream and clearly delineating who does what, when, where, and how. They have the Petroleum Commission that regulates the activities in the upstream, and then the MPA, which does same in downstream, and then Nigeria has taken similar steps. But one of the things that, since coming into upstream that I've, been able to understand working with the regulator here is, again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, is the clarity that the PIA has introduced. In terms of fiscal regimes, in terms of hydrocarbon taxes, in terms of things that are required of you as an operator, there's clarity, which was as well not there when we ran the dispensation on that DPR. Now, Mr. Olorunshola had mentioned in his opening remarks that there seems to be some straddling in roles and responsibilities. Yes, we're not there, but at least over the last 5 years, we've seen a significant shift in how functions are dispatched between all the various agencies. There's still some duplicitous rules, and I know that going forward, all of those will be clarified. One of the things that we have seen particularly and we enjoy with working with the NUPRC is their ability to engage. They have the mantra that they're business enablers, and I dare say they walk that talk. We're not there yet. There's still quite a lot of teething issues that need to be clarified around permitting, turnaround time and all of that. But if I measure where we're coming from versus where we are now, it's a fantastic place to be. If you look at section 234 through 252 of the PIA that clearly stipulates
what the requirements of an operator should be doing as far as the host community development trust is concerned. It's one of the things that other jurisdictions need to emulate. It's a dispensation where the act of philanthropy isn't discretionary anymore. It's now as a matter of legislation, and it has helped smoothen the conversation.
But let me help you with some of the things that you told everybody, because you're now concentrating on what the NUPR has done, what we're doing home, but what you promised, the world, was this: fragmented policies increase risk. You said that.
Yes.
Delay capital and complicate projects that should otherwise move faster.
Yes.
Investors respond to clarity, and so do markets. And you ask yourself, how can we harmonize regulatory frameworks guided by continental instruments and domestic?
I was building a premise to...
Oh, okay, go ahead, yes.
So all of that. If you're going to bash someone, you should also first highlight the good things that they've done. Okay. In terms of, regulatory framework, if we're going to have a One Africa voice in terms of the diplomacy and cross-functional purposes, then you want a situation where there's harmonization of all the legal framework, the regulatory framework as well. I know that, there are, the certain instruments implemented by the African Union, as well as, the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that already has mechanisms for which, regulators need to emulate across the continents. But where we are today is a seemingly disparity amongst various governments and societies. And I think it was mentioned earlier that harmony needs to start. You want a dispensation where regulators and energy ministers and attorney generals across the continent start to talk to each other. I dare say, going as one voice is not going to cut it. You have various blocks. I think somebody had mentioned that earlier. 5 major African blocks: the West African side, the South African, Central African, all of that. If we start to have unified legal frameworks, unified regulatory framework and fiscal regimes across the regions, and then maybe at the regional level, they start to talk to each other to have one single market. One of the things that I see makes that almost arduous and somewhat daunting to achieve is the fact that there is suspicion amongst ourselves, lack of trust. There's been, talk about freedom of migration across the continent. We're not even doing that. So what is then to say that when we start to talk about the need to streamline all our processes, including production sharing agreements, including, various edicts, regulatory frameworks that, for instance, if I have, like Mr. Kolakirima said, he's going into Angola. If we have a standardized fiscal regime, we have a standardized production sharing agreement, we know that with a certain level of predictability, we know what we're getting into. It makes projects more bankable. It makes your ability to access capital more easy. I'm not saying it will be, that straightforward, but at least once there's a certain level of transparency, predictability, regulatory,
Well, Africa is not one country. Okay, we will.
No, Africa is not one country, but
let's talk to government first. I mean, I will come. I mean, we have roughly 15 minutes more to go. We don't have too much time. So let's talk to government, madam. I know that NUPRC was spearheading a Pan-African regulators, initiative, and as of the time that he left, Engineer Komolafe had become the chairman of that Pan-African regulators body. What is the status of that now, and how does that, feed into what this conversation we're having? Thank you.
Thank you for this question. This further buttresses the issue around regional collaboration. Before we had the AFRIPERF, we've had the African Union, and we've had the APO. The African Petroleum Regulators Forum is just a year old, headquartered here in Abuja. So it's still a baby, and we're still seeing how things are being overturned. And then the basis of that is to have peer-to-peer discussions, peer-to-peer capacity development, and then also strengthening information around the continent. So I'll say it's really a good development, and their focus is key. And then we're seeing some stability around the formulation of the forum. But going back to the APO is a fairly stabilized organization which has spearheaded a lot of amazing projects. APO is a co-promoter to the Africa Energy Bank in conjunction with the Afri-Exim Bank. And currently, as we speak now, the APO Council of Ministers are having a meeting. I just left them in the Honorable Minister's office, where they're discussing regional collaboration, where they're discussing strengthening regulations, and then speaking with one voice, having one platform to speak as one voice in the African oil and gas space. And then the Africa Energy Bank is a strongly capitalized bank with a capitalization of $5 billion, and it's aimed at providing a solution to our African capital issues for Africa by Africa, kind of. And Nigeria is the largest shareholder so far.
Yeah, we've had that. Yeah, we know we are.
So backed by...
But that's not going to fix a regulatory ecosystem that we... Why isn't Apple actually taking the lead on this, just like he's done with, leading the African bank idea? Why doesn't Apple want to sit everybody down and say, the regulations that you guys are having, because that's what these organizers want us to discuss. The regulations that you guys are having here, it is awesome. Can we do it in Senegal too? Is Apple looking at that?
Yes.
I mean, you did mention strengthening regulations,
yes.
But it's not the same thing as having shared. Or is that maybe what we should even interrogate what they're asking us to do? Is that even possible? Really, can you, as Apple, can you speak to that?
Apple is beyond regulations. It's a platform for oil and gas producers in Africa. So,
yeah.
When you look at Apple, you're not just talking about what the AFRIPERF is doing. AFRIPERF is a specific segment targeted towards the regulatory aspect. So I must say that they're doing similar but different rules. And then when you talk about regional collaboration, you're looking at harmonization, basically. And harmonization does not mean you are trying to move in identical legislation within the countries. Rather, you're looking at core identifiers. You're looking at saying, okay, how do I align my core identifiers, such as licensing transparency, such as the regulatory framework. You're looking at how can I align my data governance across borders. You're looking at how do I ensure that there's contract sanctity across borders. So when you talk about harmonization, you're not talking about exporting a law from a particular country to another country, but rather aligning, sharing experiences, and taking what will benefit Africa as a continent.
As Apple, I mean, I like what you said, in terms of what we should be doing. But I don't see, I look at, on my desk, I look at all of Africa, and I don't see that sense of, I mean, everybody agreeing on license transparency, everybody agreeing on, I haven't seen it. Shouldn't there be an instrument that, Apple can encourage to be developed to produce that, for all of us to engage? What's your take on?
Yes, ideally, I think Apple should play a critical role in that, being a unifying organization across all the African states, and whatever is passed in the Apple resolution is binding by member countries. So this will come in as a good initiative for Apple to spearhead. I support what you said.
Okay, so are you going to go back to Brazzaville to pass on this message from this panel? We'll come back to you, Madam. Deji, Mr. Bashorun, can you, Dimeji rather, can you help us with, I don't want to start with where you are now. Dimeji is the COO of Nigeria, and Nigeria started producing is the longest producer, Patricia sits in Nara, they produce forever. Sorry. I mean, but that's the longest marginal field producer on this panel. So, I mean, so it comes with that understanding, and he's also an alumnus of Sahara. Actually, there are three alumni of Sahara on this panel, but that's not the point. Can you share your insights, into what you think about? I mean, because we have a lot of brilliant insights from the Apple lady, and it's a very good thing. The reason why I can't tell her name is that I never knew she would be on a panel, so I couldn't even research what she does, that sort of thing. I need to say that here so people don't begin to think, how come she's the only one you haven't mentioned by name? And she's planning to provide us that kind of material. So what's your take on this need to share cross-border experiences and also develop, a Pan-African set of ideas? Let's not now say unified regulatory, just I think that's more of what we
thank you very much. And excuse me, I'm glad to be here. So behind the PIA is a story. It's actually a journey. You talk about the 3% that you see in PIA. It actually started with Nigeria. We still do 3% of our revenue to the community. Our vision is to turn a Bendo to Stavanger of the world, and that we are committed to doing. And so we go to places like Bendo now. The last time I had community interference was over 15 years ago. Why? Because of our commitment to develop the community. And that's the story of PIA, looking at the 3% that comes in. So when we sell the policy, we also have a responsibility to sell the story so that people will know where we are coming from. That's number one. The second one also is recently I needed to re-enter a new field. We currently have 3 fields, very uneconomical. We won it in the last bid round, and we needed to re-enter. When NUPRC tells you that they are partners in progress, I'm an advocate of that. I've actually been part of that. NUPRC actually approached us to partner with NEPL to actually farm into seismic operation. That saved me over $7 million. And so you look at it and you say, Trillion UPRC is actually a partner in this business. And so I give that to them. We are currently trying to enter Angola. Uganda. And I honestly see that we've advanced. We have challenges. So many. If we start today, you've all said that. But beyond going there is also that Nigerian companies that go out, they are the advocates of our policies. So when I succeed in Angola, then it's a lot easier for Apple to work. If we go to Angola, we go to Senegal, we go to other countries, and as Nigerian companies, if we don't do well, then it becomes difficult to sell the integration. So I think beyond the regulatory part, it's also the responsibility of operators that go to African countries to make sure that they do well, so that we can advocate the policy that has helped us as companies to do well. The last one for me, which we would also not discount, is the power of advocacy. My chairman is here. What has helped the regulator is the advocacy that the industry has provided. Companies like IPPG, so associations like IPPG, like OPTS, helping the regulator to be able to have a conversation, I think has also helped the PIA as a whole. It has allowed us to be able to have a conversation on the table. The so-called regulated and the royalty that we pay today actually came out of the advocacy. So what would also be selling to the world, to Africa, is beyond our regulation, is a power of advocacy that is built on trust, which Mr. Longshola spoke to. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. The gentleman at the last there, he's probably the oldest person in the oil industry here on this panel. Victor was working for SSL, the seismograph service, as far back as 1986. And he's worked for Shell, I mean, for close to 30 years, and then it now runs ITO. And ITO has, there's a way that the organizer sequenced this, So this gentleman here oversees the biggest asset in the Western Niger Delta. And that gentleman there is the group managing director of the biggest, onshore assets in the Eastern Niger Delta. But while he has increased his production, he's struggling at, but that's not what we're going to. He has told me I shouldn't put him on the spot. So let me ask him about this African Union regulatory thing and how ITO, being, a company that's been looking at Mozambique and other areas, also sees this African Union, a Pan-African clarity on regulations. Can you speak to that? And then you can also sell some of the, because what I asked Dimeji wasn't what he responded to. He just simply sold the Nigeria. And he said, Oga George is in the room, he's chairman. But, so you can also tell us how you've done Nembe, as a single blend on his own out of the Bonny blend. You can play games. It's your time. And after you finish,
well,
right.
Can I now speak?
Yes, you can, sure.
So, thank you. And I do believe that the organizers are taking note, because there's a risk and danger when you put somebody who knows too much as a moderator. And not only that he knows too much, he's also fishing for information. So that's why you see a real side those days of practically everybody here. So we've come a long way from his days in the IOC. On a more serious note, and then to address the topic at hand, I believe that Mr. Lawrence laid out a blueprint for a Pan-African regulation, whatever you want to call it. I also believe that there are enough experience in country that we don't need to reinvent we don't need to reinvent the wheel. West African Gas Pipeline was developed. It started as an infrastructure project to deliver gas. So there is a template to have regional integration for project development. The telecom companies have laid multiple lines connecting several countries. There is a template, so there's enough to borrow from. I think that if we begin to focus first on harmonizing regulations rather than actually delivering projects, then we miss the mark, and we are not going to get there in good time. So NNPCL already has in its portfolio a couple of projects that also have to span across multiple countries. So the template is there to be leveraged upon. Rather than talking about legislation that will, now literally most of Africa is democratic, so you cannot just decree anything. It has to go through legislation, it will be debated in the assembly, and different countries have different priorities at any given time. If you look at Nigeria, it took us over 20 years to pass the PIA. By the time we passed the PIA 2021, I believe, till today, the world has changed. And the world is still changing. There's now the AI, the geopolitics is changing. So you might begin to ask yourself, the PIA as we passed it, is it still relevant? Is it valid? Is it going to take us for the long haul? But having said that, let me now speak about NCDMB so I can keep Tony happy a bit. We started off, as I tell, NCDMB was an acquired asset which was run by the previous operator, SPDC. At the time, the SPDC JV divested that asset, there were key risks that we inherited, and I believe it's the same for most people, most divested assets. Top on that was the issue of oil theft. The second one was the community restiveness. And the third one was unclear, and I'm coming back to that word, clarity again. Unclear legacy commitments, in particular around the decommissioning and the abandonment commitments that people had. It wasn't clear. The third one, or the fourth one, was the issue of license life and license renewal, because your lending was underpinned by the remaining life of your license. Now, the PIA brought some clarity, and I must say that, particularly around the community issue, by introducing the Host Community Development Trust Fund. Now you claim the 3% that it came from you. Okay, I wouldn't debate that, but at least it's something that's now been sort of institutionalized. All the fragmented MOUs that companies were pushed to sign in order to keep their social license to operate has now been sort of codified under this arrangement, and the communities themselves also know that they have a responsibility to make sure that operations go on. Otherwise, they will equally lose. The PIA as well streamlined, or at least defined the regulatory scope of the two bodies that came out of the old DPR. You all here remember when there was an issue as to who was responsible for the terminals. Yeah. It took what I would call maybe the first presidential order on this to clarify that. Yeah. So people were not sure whether we need to go to NDPRA or whether you go to NUPRC. At some time, I think both heads were probably butting themselves. So I felt encouraged when I saw a photograph of the new CCE and then the head of, meeting together and then sort of signaling to the industry that we can work together, we can collaborate, and we can move on. NCDMB shut down for over 18 months with no single production. We aren't struggling, we are coming back alive.
Thank you very
much. and as you know, NCDMB is sitting on very extensive reserve base. We were saddled with managing, on top of that, 17 odd kilometers of a trunk line, which spanned all the militant areas of the Delta. And at some point, we were actually taking benefit of less than 8% of our production. And let me just put it in graphic terms. You produce 100 barrels, it travels 117, 20 kilometers to Bonny. You get to Bonny, the Bonny terminal says, well, I saw 8 barrels. How can you remain in business? okay? So we had to step out, and thanks to our shareholders and our strategic partner, took our fate in our own hands. And that's why today we are proud to introduce the Nembe crude grade into the global market. So now there is a separate terminal, and we've moved out of the Bonny blend. So, Tony, there's a lot more information I can.
No, but you can tell, you can assure the audience here now now that you are out, that you could do 100,000 barrels a day in the next 2 years. So we can signal to the government that 2 million
Before
day
we shut down, we were on part because we hit over 100,000 barrels.
Yes, but that's a long time ago. Yeah.
No, but that was before everything started.
Yeah.
Okay. So
we know
the integrated capacity is still there, but you also know the limitations that you have to go through when you have to barge rather than pipeline. Our operations DNA is not a barging operation given our size. Okay.
So ITU has told you that they're going to construct a pipeline to where? That's what it means. If they say they are leaving barging, you are going to construct a pipeline to where, and when does it start?
Sure, of course.
Okay. Thank you very much, Victor. It's a pleasure. We will wrap up by asking the APPO representative to just give us a sense of what she thinks should be that document, that provides a Pan-African, engagement clarity. That sort of thing answers the questions that the organizers want, after which we just thank Mr. Raymond, who is now breathing down our neck, for the opportunity for being here. So please, quickly.
Okay, to my super learned moderator, I think it's cheating having him to moderate here. My name is Dr. Asia. I'm the technical advisor upstream to the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources Oil.
Okay.
I do not represent APO here.
Okay.
So
Thank you very much.
from Nigeria's perspective, I think I'll still like to go back to the PIA, which gave birth to delineation of institutions. And then those institutions now have a set of rules and regulations, which is like tearing the PIA apart and putting some specifics into each issues. And then over time, we have had a lot of reviews. The government has a policy and then a platform called the CDCU, that's the Central Deliverable and Coordination Unit, which does like an appraisal every 3 months. So even the Petroleum Resources Ministry has been appraised. There are a lot of indices that are looked upon from the our capacity from production to the midstream and downstream. Likewise, the number of investments that has come in, and then also the critical projects ongoing in the country. So I say with every legislation, if you don't have a performance measurement tool in place, you really not know whether you are on the right track or not. So I will not speak on behalf of APO here, but I will say Nigeria's PIA is a work in progress, and a lot is being done, and a lot is going to be seen in the near future. Key, again, is the issues around investment flowing into the country. We've had over a decade of no investment coming, but since the PIA came, we've had a number of FIDs that have been signed, and we've had the Ubeta, we have the Panta, we have the Bonga North, and just recently we had the commitment around Bonga South. So this is a clear indication that there's predictability, that capital is chasing the right institution, the right environment, And then we'll also look at the increase in asset acquisitions, talking about the divestment that has happened around Renaissance, around Seplat, which is another success story from the PIA as well. And then we'll also look at the increase in the assets, increase in upstream activities.
Okay.
When this administration started, we had a rig count of only 14 in country. But as we speak today, we have over 60 rigs in country carrying out different levels of activity.
Okay. I'll have to stop you there. Thank you very much. You want to give a round of applause for this very wonderful panel. Agbaoye Kola Karim, Chairman Shoreline Natural Resources, Olajumoke Ajayi, F.N.A.P.E, Fellow of NAPE, President NAPE, Managing Director in Jeshia, Tosin Tomi, Head of Commercial and Planning at Shrami Energy, Madam, who just mentioned her name, Mrs. Patricia Simon Hart, Managing Director of AFTRAC, Chair of Sustainable Committee in Aradel Board, Oladimeji Bashorun, COO, Energia, and my very good friend, my old friend. I met, when I met Victor, okay, let's not talk about that.
All right. I guess I can take it from here, sir. I can take it from here. Thank you very much. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you, thank you. Mrs. Oyekunle, PS, if you can please come again. Let's begin with the moderator, Mr. Toyin Akiosho, and from him we'll move over to Mr. Kola Karim. Come on. Where's the plaques? Ladies, let's get it going, Let's begin with the moderator, Mr. Toyin Akiosho, F.N.A.P.E. Thank you so much. Please present to him, our moderator. And that will be followed by Mr. Kola Karim, the chairman of Shoreline. Please be on standby. Okay, Kola, just sit down. Just sit down until I get to you. 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 All right. Are you ready? Okay. Thank you for driving the conversation, our moderator. I'd like to have Mr. Kola Karim, Agboye Kola Karim, to please be on standby. He will receive next. President of NAPE will follow. Mr. Karim? That's what Mr. Karim behind you, PS? That's him there, all right. Let's get Mrs. Olajumoke Ajayi, F.N.A.P.E, on standby. And of course, Dr. Tosin Etomi on standby. Okay. I'd like to have Dr. Asiya Abdullahi Umar, Technical Advisor upstream to the Honorable Minister of the Petroleum Oil, on standby after Tosin. Dr. Asiya, please, you're up. Thank you. Miss Patricia Simon Hart is next, founder and MD of AFTRAC after Asiya. All right. And of course, following Ms. Hart, Ms. Simon Hart, would be Mr. Oladimeji Bashorun, CEO Energia, on standby. Photographers, you're taking forever, huh? All right, we'd like to have Mr. Victor Okoronkwo on standby. And following Mr. Victor Okoronkwo, I'd like to invite the representative of the CCE, Mr. Engr. If he's in the room, he's in the room, correct? Or who is stepping forward for that? Edu Inyang still in the room, Friday? All right, who is receiving on? Okay, Dr. Joseph. Oh, okay. Would receive on behalf of the CCE. Please step forward, Dr. Joseph. Just hold on one second. You have the picture, guys? Thank you. Please step forward. Step forward. Asiya, please hold on 1 second. Yeah, please just hold on. We'll take a fan photo before you leave. Okay, I would like Mr. Osing Olorunsola, who laid a strong foundation for this panel, to please be on standby. You're receiving our plaque of appreciation as well. Please, Mr. Olorunsola, the final one. Just hold on, sir. You'll join the family photo. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have been directed, because the Honorable Minister had gone to receive the visiting presidents on behalf of number one, the opening of the exhibition has been moved from today. I will tell you tomorrow morning when we're having it at the state, when we would have it, when we gather at the villa tomorrow morning. By the way, we're gathering. Yeah, family photo, please, sir. Family photo, everyone, family photo. Please give them one more round of applause. I will tell you tomorrow when we gather at the villa, when the exhibition will take place. Secondly, this evening, everyone is invited to the African Rave concert by the poolside of Abuja Continental Hotel. If you have the invite for the ministerial dinner tonight, well, you have it, you know where it is, you're invited. And tomorrow morning, please be seated at the villa. Be seated at the villa by between 8 and 8:30, so we can start in earnest at 9 a.m. Finally, I received a call a few seconds ago from lunch. It says it's getting cold. I should release you, and I have to do that now. For delegates, lunch is served inside the exhibition hall. For VIPs and speakers, continuing in the exhibition hall till the end of the exhibition hall, you will be ushered into the dining area for the VIPs and speakers. I would see you tomorrow evening, then bright and early tomorrow morning. Richmond Osuji is my name. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye-bye. Bon appetit. Whoa, our lunch is sponsored by Aradel Holdings for VIP. Please, a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our lunch sponsors, please, please. And PTDF for the delegate lunch. I want to say a big thank you to both parties or entities. Thank you so much for sponsoring lunch for us this afternoon. Thank you. Please take care of your personal belongings. Many thanks to Aradel Holdings PLC for VIP lunch. Many thanks to PTDF for delegate lunch. Thank you to both companies and agency. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And also to Seplat for tea and coffee earlier today. Enjoy the lunch. Sumptuous, I can assure you it will be. And we will see you later tonight.